Jackson, tight spiral. A battle. Pittsburgh's got it. Devin Bush just took it away.
Here comes the bus! Here comes the bus!
First and goal. To Connor. Off the hesitation. Connor scores. Touchdown Steelers. 26-yard attempt. Cook puts it down. Tucker puts it through. Wood tied. Help lead the Steelers down the field. 33-yard attempt. Boswell's got it. Shotgun for Jackson. Rush coming. Jackson gets rid of it. Caught by Ingram. Tries to spin. And a flag down it.
Up in the passer, number 92. First down.
That is a Daney. Shotgun. Hodges. Hits his man. Juju Smith shoots to the ball. Got lodged loose. Fight for it. The Ravens have it. 46-yard attempt. Knox the snapper. Cook the holder. And the kick is good. Ravens win.
With your host, Charles Prodigy Ritchie, here on the Mass Steel Podcast.
This thing belongs to Mr. Rooney, belongs here, and let's see if we can bring this damn thing back in next year, along with the Super Bowl. Here we go.
The game is over. The Pittsburgh Steelers did it the hard way.
With the 10th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Devin Bush, linebacker,
And welcome back, everybody, to this edition of the Mass Steel Podcast here with me, Charles Prodigy Ritchie. As we have returned, as everyone's well aware, the Steelers lost definitely a controversial defeat at the hands of the Ravens right there. Big play in that game late was thrown a flag for roughing the passer, which was controversial on Ola Adeni right there for trying to tackle at the knees of Lamar Jackson, which he really did not. If you clearly watched the replay right there, Steelers, as a result, find themselves in 1-4 for the first time since 2013. And right now their season is looking really grim at this point in time, as you can imagine. But right now we're going to get into a little bit more right here on the Mass Steel Podcast. Be Charles Prodigy Ritchie. If you guys want, feel free to get on the show. Number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that number is always be reached is 209-2232. You can also follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richie. You can also check out the show streaming live on Instagram, Men of Steel Nation. And of course, you can check out my YouTube channel, which is currently streaming right now, Men of Steel Podcast. And we got some updates real quick as regards to Mason Rudolph. Remember, he's in concussion protocol right now. As usual, a 5-step process. We'll remind everyone briefly about that. Plus, we got the latest injury report for this week as the Steelers go into this week going up against the Chargers in LA. But right now, I mean, one of the biggest headlines aside from that cruciating loss to the Baltimore Ravens in Pittsburgh was, of course, the rumor being floated around. Actually, not necessarily so much rumor anymore, but Dan Snyder has actually got Mike Tomlin on his wish list right now for being a head coaching candidate of the Washington Redskins. We'll get into that in just a little bit later on. But right now, Mike Tomlin is definitely determined to coach this group right now, as he just mentioned here, with the Steelers. I mean, that's pretty much his main focus, his objective. He was talking at the press conference earlier, and here's what he had to say as far as just recap everybody what he said on Monday's press conference about that. Here's Mike Tomlin, folks.
As a preferred candidate in the next head coach of the Washington Redskins?
I'm not worried about that, to be quite honest with you. You were the first person to mention it to me in a public setting. So,
What was your reaction to the private setting?
about the same I'm giving you. You know, guys, I'm the head coach of a 1-4 football team that's going on the road to play a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback with my third quarterback. You think I'm worried about anything this week other than that?
And of course, that was Mike Tomlin right there, and usually Mike Tomlin's style right there, as always with the media. He's definitely not very too open as far as going into particulars, as he usually always says. But yeah, I definitely agree with him right now. I mean, in the sense right now, I mean, at this point in time, I mean, listen, I mean, the only thing you got to think about right now, I mean, it's very possible that we may be seeing the final days of Mike Tomlin. I was actually watching a Facebook live video about yesterday afternoon, I believe it was. I want to say it was on Tuesday. Brian Diardo of CBSSports.com. He can be followed on Twitter at Brian Diardo. And he definitely was well enough to point out, as everyone watched the timeline with a guy like Mike Tomlin, what he's done for the Steelers organization overall since being head coach. Not only that, too, but I mean, a lot of times, too, remember, in his first 5 years of the season of his coaching career, remember, he's went to 2 Super Bowls, split the Super Bowl appearances where he won 1. I mean, and then he's also, I mean, in that span within his first 5 years of his coaching, I mean, when you really look at it, he's only missed the playoff 1 time in that span. But then we saw the back-to-back 8-8 seasons where this team did not make the playoffs. And of course, too, I mean, when they did make the playoffs back in 2014, they had an early first-round exit in the wild card at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens back in 2014. That was the same game where saw Ben Roethlisberger actually get knocked out of the game briefly. And I think they had a backup quarterback in there, Landry Jones. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely been very interesting. I mean, then when you also think about it, too, I mean, aside from that, I mean, from his overall coaching tenure, I mean, this guy who's actually brought 6 AFC North Division titles since coaching this team. I mean, and he's also had about, at that time, 2 wild card appearances. So he's made the playoffs about 8 times in his 13 years as coach of this team. And definitely one of the fastest winning coaches in NFL history. I mean, when you look at it overall, I mean, when you really, I mean, look at his overall pedigree. I mean, this is a guy who's really did, I think, a lot in his tenure. I mean, he's always going to be criticized, I mean, with the notion that when he did win those 2 Super Bowls, a lot of it was from Bill Cowher's team, a big chunk of it. But at the same time, too, a guy like Mike Tomlin, who's also proven he could rebuild a team. The only problem is he hasn't gotten championship level yet. And when you throw in the fact about, aside from being back-to-back 8-8 seasons, not having a losing season overall in his overall tenure with the team all time, but I think a lot of this goes deeper back to when the Steelers did not elect to re-sign Le'Veon Bell to, I mean, when they could come to terms with him on a long-term contract, and Mike Tomlin was saying, we want volunteers, not hostages. Obviously, he's trying to keep a winning culture in the locker room. I mean, overall. But, I mean, for a guy who overall, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, at this point in time, who's actually 126, 70, and 1, this guy's, I think, doing all you can ask for. I mean, that's one of the things about society today. You're always going to find someone who just feels like you just can't get enough better going on. But, I mean, at the same time, at the end of the day, a guy like Tomlin has always been real on guard with this team. I mean, he's not a guy to go, like, deep in the hypotheticals or, like, just give you the appeasing answer that everyone wants to hear. I mean, at some point in the day, a guy like Tomlin, he's always going to be, when you think about it, a guy who's just going to be focused on 1 week at a time when you look at it. And, I mean, that's pretty much the main thing. I mean, he's always going to stay loyal to his guys. He's always going to be just stay focused on the moment at hand versus running deep into the future here. But, I mean, at the same time, too, I mean, he's always going to be criticized with not maximizing the team's potential to where it should properly be. I mean, that's the thing right here he's always going to get reminded of. And I think a lot of people just kind of start fading out from him, like when Brian Diarra was saying that he was the toast of the town here when he started off. And overall, I mean, he has done enough, I think, in my mind, to legitimize himself as a pretty darn good coach. I mean, just unfortunately, it's just not going to always come to everyone's satisfaction, the liking, as far as, like, making adjustments for opponents. And I think just the biggest thing, too, and then when you also move on from Antonio Brown, when I think a lot of people look at him to be like, you finally got your own team, you're looking to reestablish the culture in Pittsburgh, and now you're trying to prove it without your two biggest stars who have long come and gone. Now it's like, what do you do at this point in time? So I think that's where he's in a situation right now. I guess he's coming across like a guy who looks like kind of put his own foot in his mouth. But now, I mean, when you're at this 1-4 season right now, more than likely right now, it's going to probably be a losing season. But I want to ask you right now, folks, who's watching this stream right now, what do you think on a scale of 1 to 10 right now that we will see the first ever losing season under Mike Tomlin? I mean, do you think it'll go up to 6 to 8 wins? 5? I mean, what do you think? I want to hear your thoughts. Again, number to be reached is 312-209-2232. Again, that number is 312-209-2232. You can also follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richie, as well as check out the show streaming live on Instagram, Meta Steel Nation, and of course, my YouTube channel, Meta Steel Podcast. As we look at it, as we break things down right here, as the Steelers right now, as they try to prepare for their next upcoming opponent against the LA Chargers in LA at this point in time. And I just want to say a little shout out to Pierre Aguirre. Thank you very much for taking the time to like the page, sir. Glad to have you on board right now and also liking the page. So glad you could be with us tonight. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Pierre. Feel free to share your comments just like anyone else. I want to hear from you. What do you feel like right now the win total is going to be for this team? Does Mike Tomlin even finish out the season with the Steelers right now? I mean, that's another thing we got to get into. And right now, when we look at it, according to John Clayton, who can be followed on Twitter at John Clayton NFL. Remember, he's a former ESPN senior NFL analyst. And he said on Mike Tomlin that to the Redskins, Tomlin's not Dan Snyder's kind of guy. He loves to hire offensive coaches. That's what he wants. Spurrier, Shanahan, Tomlin's not his type. But he did say, however, that a coach can get traded just like a player. Tomlin would have no say in the matter. If the Steelers want to send Tomlin to Washington, Tomlin can't block it or say no. And I think that's definitely a real interesting point right there. I mean, you're definitely putting this guy as value right there. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen right now. I highly doubt that. And the only reason why I'm not going to go ahead say that he's going to be traded just yet is because you still got Kevin Colbert right there. And when you look at the rapport him and Kevin Colbert have gotten, I mean, since working together over all the years, I'm not sure if I want to break that up necessarily. I mean, that's one of the things right there. And I think that's going to be a very telling show. I think Mike Tomlin is definitely going to finish out the season. Remember, he is signed for the 2021 season with an option to extend it if they want to. They want to pick it up. But I think at this point in time, too, I think right now Kevin Colbert's going to be very interesting. His contract, as I said throughout many a podcast throughout this whole entire year, as it was reported out there, it's going to expire at the 2020 draft. I think that's going to be the biggest key right there if they don't decide to renew Kevin Colbert. And if you do get a new GM and you have time a little bit more under the scope, I think that's where things could become a little iffy right there. And that's where I just tend to watch out for right there. I just feel like right now you got to consider all those aspects at that. I mean, when you look at it before we get ready to dismiss a guy, and I'm not sure if Art Rooney's reached that point. I'd have to hear a level of frustration within the organization. I mean, of course, Dan Snyder, I mean, he's going to want to be aggressive on finding a coach. I'm sure he's going to want to keep the lines of communications. Something had to been reached out and said, but you think we got to keep that stuff in mind here. We're on the opening drive right now. Definitely want to take your calls. Leave your comments right now. Again, I want to hear from you right now, and I'll even do a poll at the end of this podcast. What do you think the Steelers' win total will be right now if Tomlin does remain to be the head coach with the Steelers? Again, do you see it being between anywhere between 5 and 8, or can it still be anywhere from a 9 to 10 win season? As we get ready to move on here and trans forward here as we look at it, but yeah, I mean let's take a look at it right now. Definitely want to open up the comments here, the phone lines. It's all yours, event right now. But let's also get into right now, back to Mason Rudolph right now. And this was reported by Dale Lally of DK Pittsburgh Sports. And remember, who's actually, by the way, Mason Rudolph, who had that nasty hit earlier this week in that game. By the way, I mean, who's looking at it. And, yeah, I mean, it was definitely Earl Thomas, Baltimore safety, who made the hit on Mason Rudolph after completing a nice scramble pass. Definitely paid the piper. But remember, concussion protocol, I mean, that's one thing he's had to battle out of. But it looks like it's going to probably be more than likely Devlin Hodges, product out of Stanford right here. And just to break down the concussion protocol, here's how it goes. A player is prescribed rest until concussion symptoms go away, such as headaches or dizziness. He then gets examined by a neurologist to see how well his balance and cognitive functions have returned. Each player gets tested every year prior to the start of the season, measures those functions for a baseline that is then used to measure concussion recovery against. Step number 2, following supervision of the medical staff, the player will begin light aerobic exercise after being cleared for step 1. If symptoms reoccur, he'll go back to step number 1, where he'll go back to some rest. Step number 3, if he's able to survive light aerobic exercises, he'll pick up the aerobic exercises, make it a little bit more intense, and take it up a step more. If signs continue to feel, once again, from step number 1, back to step number 1, where he goes back to rest. Step number 4, the player makes it for the first 3 steps. He is then permitted to return to the football field in a non-contract capacity for practice. Again, concussion symptoms arise. He goes back to step number 1. And finally, at the first 4 stages, show no sign of relapse. Team's medical staff can give him clearance to return. At that point, he also must be examined and given clearance by an independent physician. If that occurs, the player is cleared to return. That's concussion protocol. Once again, if anyone you are not aware, I know you heard the procedure before, but that's what the steps he's going through as of right now. And speaking of which, too, as known by Missy Matthews, I mean, Devlin Hodges and TJ Watt said it was good to see Mason Rudolph at practice today, waiting on the Steelers' first practice report for week number 6. So obviously, right now he's in a non-contract drill, I think, at this point in time. So, and speaking of which, here we go into the practice report for week number 6, which brings me to this. So, as of right now, I mean, you got 7 guys on the injury report of your starters, 7 starters right now at this point in time who are on here. And let's go over those 7 starters right now as we look at it. You got Mason Rudolph. Again, he was limited in practice today, which is a really good sign. I don't expect him to be ready for the Chargers game, but let's just wait and see. I'm not going to rule anything out. It looks like Devlin Hodges is going to be the guy. You got James Walsh to remember, who's actually going to be missing some time. Remember, right now, he actually had the shoulder injury. He did not practice as right now. And according to Jordan Dejani of CBS Sports.com, he's expected to miss a few weeks with the shoulder injury. So his obviously James Washington did not practice. You also got Steve Nelson with a groin injury, right cornerback, limited in practice today. You also got Mark Barron, who did not practice, your left inside linebacker, due to a hamstring. Roosevelt Nix, by the way, too, who also had a knee injury. He did not practice. Then, of course, you got Marquise Pouncey, which is undisclosed. He did not practice. And Vance McDowell with the shoulder injury. He did not practice. But another guy to pay attention to, too, Jalen Samuels right now, who's supposed to miss up to a month after, I believe, getting his knee scoped. So when we look at it right now, and it said he could miss a month, and this is being reported by Brooke Pryor, and he went on knee surgery on Monday, Thomas said on Tuesday, and he was at the practice facility on crutches yesterday, and the knee injury suffered and lost to the Ravens. And Tom was saying it showed up after the game. We had him evaluated and saw that was necessary. So we made the decision to fix it and fix it ASAP. Definitely a good call right there. I think if you ask me, I mean, definitely watch it out for the player's safety and what to do going forward from here. But, yeah, I think it's definitely been a shook-up time right now in Steelers Nation. When you look at the way the season's been down spiraling, and I mean, think about it. I mean, you lose your starting quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, out for the whole year during week number 2, which is found out next day on his right throwing elbow. And of course, I mean, now look at it this way. You also got some other guys right now who are going to be missing some significant length of time. You got Jalen Samuels being hurt. I mean, you're still without Roosevelt Nix. I mean, and that's a lot of stuff right there to take. And then Vance McDonald, too. So you had right now, I mean, and then you also had, too, let's not forget, Sean Davis, who I believe is on the reserve and injured list right now, who, by the way, because you got the reserve and injured list with Sean Davis and Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, as we know, he is out for the whole season, but Sean Davis, he is eligible to return after about, I want to say, like 8 weeks. So expect him around November, I want to say. He should be coming back if everything's good. But, yeah, so that's where we stand right there with the injury report for week number 6. I didn't get a chance to see anything on the Chargers. I will provide an update if I see anything following this podcast. But also, too, let's get into some notable stuff. As reported by Missy Matthews, who we followed on Twitter at Missy_Matthews, Devin Bush, who can also be followed on Twitter at DBush11, leads all rookies and tackles 45 and is one out of 3 AFC rookies, Max Crosby and Cleveland Farrell, with a sack and interception this season. That's very darn impressive right there. And he keeps this up right there. I definitely got to tell you, I mean, Devin Bush, you got to tip your cap to him this year. And you see why the Steelers traded up for him in the first round. And he's definitely proving some dividends right now. I got Deborah Banks Walker. Thank you very much for joining in on the podcast, saying the team is beat up, but they could come back. Yeah, I mean, it's still not over technically. I mean, again, it's going to depend a lot on the division. I mean, a lot of people, I think a lot of stuff is hitting the fan, so to speak, fill in the blank. But you got to realize, too, I mean, the Browns would have won on Monday night. I want to say the Steelers, they will probably more than likely at that point in time would have been out by, I want to say, 3 games. So, I mean, that was huge right there. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, they had a chance to do some separation here. I mean, in the division. Now, instead, you got the Ravens who are looking up at 3-2. I mean, if the Browns will have went 3-2, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the best sign in the world. I mean, you would still been 2 games, not 3 games, but that makes a whole bunch of difference right there. I mean, and the thing is, too, I mean, the Steelers are 1-1 in the AFC North, so it's not like they don't got any wins in the division. But, I mean, the biggest things they got to worry about, too, is the common game opponents, too. Remember, the AFC North does face the AFC West. No, I mean, not the AFC West, the AFC East and the AFC West this year. And the Steelers right now, I mean, altogether, I mean, pretty much what their record is saying right now, 1-4 in all those games. So I think that's the only reason why I've got to stay calm right here. I think just the injuries are just making matters worse. But I mean, again, this is football. I mean, it's not going to always be the surprising. It's not going to always be the warming sport where you're going to want to battle it through and see guys truck it out. So we'll find out. We'll see how this team goes forward. I mean, moving on. But they definitely got a lot of stuff. I know it's been a frustrating season for everybody. But please just try and bear with it, and let's see what happens. Let's just focus on what they got to do going up against the Chargers. I still think adjustments can be made. And who's to say that? I mean, they may not make another move. I mean, prior to. I mean, you've been seeing them aggressive getting a tight end. I mean, getting a free safety. I mean, I'm not going to rule out anything, I mean, at this point in time while the season is still alive. I mean, you're only 5 games in. You got 11 games. It's 11-game season right now. 8-8 could probably still get you in the playoffs, probably win the division. Remember, I think the last time I can remember a team winning the division with a losing record, I want to say was 2010. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the Seattle Seahawks who actually won the NFC West with a losing record in 2010, and they upset the New Orleans Saints at home in Seattle. So let's think about that for a second. So believe it or not, there's still some hope. I know I may be talking on my you-know-what, but still, I mean, you got to look at those type of concepts right there. I mean, mathematically, I mean, anything could still happen. I mean, October, they already lost 1 game, but again, October is still one of their months where they could still hit a good stride. And I'm not going to rule that out just yet. I think you got to keep that stuff in mind. You got to be considerate of that. And we'll find out what's going on. But, yeah, let's see what this team is made of going down the stretch when we look at it and see how it continues to go. I'm not really to rule out anything on this team. I see a lot of fight from this team. As long as Mike Tomlin is still the head coach, I'll tell you right now, I'll be foolish to count this team out at this point in time. Still do something and make some noise, but it's definitely not looking good right now, but we'll find out Sunday night. If they lose Sunday night, I'll probably say it's just a matter of time for that season is done, probably the next week or 2. Then you really start hearing some noise probably about Tomlin and like his coaching future. I mean, not so much from within the organization, but definitely the media will definitely be eating it up around left and right, and won't be letting it go. They won't let it out. So we'll find out how that goes. But, yeah, let's just see what happens at that point in time. Just still got to keep going right here. Well, I just pay a big shout out to Wendell Glover, who just put a nice little pick in Steeler Nation group. Keep the faith like that right there. Couldn't agree with you anymore right there. And yeah, you definitely want to keep the faith in this time because you just never know what stuff could like go your way at the time. And remember, like I said, let's not forget in 2013, after going from 0-4 to 2-4 to 2-6 to 5-6 and then 5-8. You never know, and I'm not going to rule out anything just yet on this team. You have to consider all that stuff right there. You have to keep it all in perspective, and just think it's not a done season just yet. I mean, you still got more stuff to go and more stuff to rally on, if you ask me. So let's go ahead and get ready to wrap the show up with fair or foul right now as we get ready to close things out here on the Men of Steel podcast. Again, phone lines are still open briefly. Again, if you want to get in the conversation, number to be reached, hit me up anytime. I welcome the phone calls. Steel Nation, it's 312-209-2232 is the show number. You can follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richie. Check out my Instagram stream, Men of Steel Nation, as well as my YouTube page, Men of Steel podcast. See, I'm even choking right now myself. No pun intended, folks. All right. Fair or foul topic number one. Mike Tomlin didn't squash the idea of him possibly being the next head coach of the Redskins. I'm going to have to say foul on that one. I know a lot of people like Mark Kaboly of The Athletic and some other people in the media saying, well, you kind of still left it open for speculation that's still possible because he's talking about mainly for this year. I disagree with that. I mean, no offense. I mean, I know a lot of people, there's probably more Mike Tomlin critics than there are supporters, which I will admit. But no, I'm not going to buy into anything just like that just yet. I mean, it's true what John Clayton was saying even earlier, too. I mean, remember, he could treat me just like a player where he doesn't have any say in the matter, where he could get traded. And I get that, but you can't buy into that just yet. Listen, this guy, Mike Tomlin, one thing you always get with him, he's always going to keep his team fighting. Remember, like he said in the very beginning when they won their last Super Bowl, it's not always going to look pretty, but we'll always come fighting for you in the end. That's the thing you got to remember about Mike Tomlin. I'm going to definitely say a big-time foul on that one. I mean, yeah, he's got his oldest son right now, Dino, who's a freshman receiver at Maryland. And they're talking about a 50-minute car ride from the Redskins facility that Tomlin grew up in Hampton, Virginia, went to college, William & Mary. 3 hours down the road, his youngest son, Mason, is graduating high school. And head coaches usually have an expiration date that's well before 13 years. But the biggest thing, too, I mean, also that was being pointed out, I think, by Kaboly is that, yeah, I remember with Kevin Colbert, his contract expiring after the 2020 NFL draft. I mean, if he does go to the Redskins, one of the things being offered right there, will he be able to get some general manager power along with head coaching? I mean, if he does, I think he deserves it, but I'm not going to say it right now. And right now, just to give you some little odds of the Steelers making the playoffs right now. Real quick, a fair foul topic number two. So far in the history of this franchise, and thank you very much, Deborah. I appreciate you commenting real quick. I love hearing your feedback. Great to have you on. But just to give you guys, everybody a fact here, there's been 12 times that the Steelers started off 1-4, and they made the playoffs just once. And Deborah was nice to point out. I researched it myself. Thank you very much. 1976, where the Steelers started off 1-4, and they were able to win like 9 straight, and they went to 10-4 that year. And that was the year they almost repeated, but unfortunately they didn't have Franco Harris and some guys, some key guys, in the AFC Championship game when they had to go on the road against Oakland. But I mean, the other times they missed the playoffs, so they're 1 out of 11 or 1 out of 12 tries as far as not making the playoffs. Last 2 times in this millennium that it's recently happened was 2013. I mean, last time, excuse me, not 2 times. But, yeah. So there you go, 2013. And before that, and you never had that happen with Bill Cowher's team, but you had Chuck Noll's team, who was 5-11 in 1988, 6-10 in 1986, and 1-13 in 1969. So he's had happened 3 times. Only time will tell if this will happen with Mike Tomlin right now. So, I mean, it's fair or foul. Steelers won't make the playoffs. I'm going to say fair only if they lose this game against the Chargers. Now let's go back to fair foul topic number 3. Last one to close out here. Right now, still agree with head coach Mike Thomas to defer in overtime. I would have to say foul on that one. I understand his point where, I mean, when you got the win going against the Ravens, we're going to try and kick the field goal. But let's think about it. Justin Tucker, who's one of the most accurate kickers, aside from Adam Vinatieri all time I see in the NFL. No offense right there. I mean, they got lucky they were able to stop him on 4 and out. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster did fumble. That eventually led to the game being lost. But I do feel like right now, I mean, you can't really say that was like truly fair. I have to probably disagree with Coach on that one. I mean, when you got stuff right there in the heat of the battle, I think you gotta go for it, and you want to like carry over into that game. I mean, if you got touchdown, I mean, opening drive, I understand you're having struggle on the special teams, make it past the 15-yard line, but you want to keep the pressure on the Ravens and give your defense a little rest. I mean, they're very fortunate enough not to give up a touchdown. He was thinking the mindset that if I just give him a field goal, we could still be in it and try and go out there and match. I think that was a mistake right there. A lot of people, I think, could still question that throughout the season. I hope that's not in the back of the mind of the front office if they decide to think about moving on, which I doubt. But until we hear otherwise, let's find out. Anyway, that's going to do it for a wrap for this edition of the Menace Duel podcast. I'll be returning again tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time for a 1-year anniversary. Tomorrow will be my 1-year anniversary since doing this podcast, Menace Duel podcast. Make sure to tune in for that. It's going to be a little later in the evening as opposed to 6:30. I'm going to try get some good content on there. Hopefully have a guest on there. But I just want to say thank you for everyone for supporting this. It means a lot to me for doing this in my media career, covering this team. And I just want to say thank you very much for all the likes, the comments, the love and support you've given me. And it's my honor to be covering you guys for Steeler Nation. And again, you can always follow me on Twitter at Prodigy Richie. Check out my Instagram stream, Menace Duel Nation, as well as my YouTube channel, Menace Duel Podcast. So I always leave you. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.